Hello and welcome to Spotlight Indie. I'm your host, Frasier Armitage, part-time robot, full-time nerd, and author of all those books that you have heard me talk about many times before. Joining me this week is, of course, the wonderfully talented, the very gifted and delightful HL Tinsley. Holly, how goes it?
It goes very well, Frasier. Thank you. This week I have signed up for circus skills classes. I will now take follow-up questions.
I have none. All I'm thinking is like, why is it taking you this long? Like,
Good question. That is a good question. I don't know what is going on. I do this thing where every so often I go through a period where I think I'm becoming less interesting as a person. So I need to find some skill that I can try and fail to master that will make me seem marginally more interesting than I actually am. So I have found a class near to me that does circus skills. So, next time we record, I'll have done a whole lesson, which means I'll probably be on a unicycle or hanging from the ceiling. We don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, watch this space.
You're going to be dressed up as a clown, I feel like.
all that, yes. That might be easier.
Circus skills. Wow. But having said that, Holly, you are a very gifted ringleader. So,
I mean, this might be a good chance for me to expand my skill set, I feel. Or it's just a chance for me to be really, really terrible at something and then laugh about it later.
I would be terrible in the circus. Absolutely terrible. I have no transferable skills that would. I'd be very good at the guy that gets knives thrown at them. That's the one, like, put me on the wheel, spin me around. Let's do it. Next episode. Yeah, at the Spotlight Indie event, where not Holly will be throwing knives at me on a spinning wheel. And on that note, PL, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. I'm decidedly a lot more boring than anyone that's in a circus. So hats off to you, Holly. Certainly, we all feel like you're pretty interesting as you are. But if you feel the need to upgrade, I say.
So this week, we're going to be proving that there's no such thing as a stupid question. Authors, when they start out, have so many questions, when you get into writing, and you quite often feel silly for having them or for asking them. But what we like to do as part of this segment is just explore those questions, however basic or however complicated they are. So thank you for sending in all of your questions. We really appreciate it. Holly, what is our question for this week?
So for this week, I'm quite excited about this because we're going to be talking about something that I know for a fact that not only new authors struggle with, but also established authors. And that is the time management and the obstacles and challenges that go with that. So I want to start out by just adding a little bit of context, because I think when people talk about giving advice, it's very easy to sit there and think, well, this advice sounds good, but it doesn't apply to me because that situation is different to mine. And I know that for us as authors, PL has a different situation to Frasier, and I have a different situation to the both of you. And there are various challenges and advantages that go with those. So to give a bit of background for my situation, I work full-time in the writing world. So I don't write full-time as an author, but I do write full-time. That is most of my week. I also run Spotlight Indie. I work with Frasier and the team. I also write my own books. I also do various other things. The advantage that I have is that, number one, I don't have young children. My son is an adult, so I don't have that restriction of having toddlers or school runs to do. My other advantage is that I am able to set my own timelines. So I do work full time, but I am self-employed and I have flexible hours, so I can pick and choose when to do things. The disadvantages to my situation are that because of these things, I have no parameters, which means that quite regularly I will work a 60 to 80 hour week and not take days off because I don't have structures in place, I don't have boundaries, and that can lead to burnout and overload. So that is my situation. I know, Frasier, you have got a family and for you it is very different. So how does your kind of week look for you as a writer?
It looks like you know, like the abstract art where you're not quite sure what it is, but there's definitely color. I feel like it's like that. I feel like it's basically, it should be a very well thought through, patterned, like, Excel spreadsheeted, I've got this much time for writing, but quite often it is very much just let's throw something at the canvas and see if it sticks. And I feel like that's my approach to the week when it comes to writing, because I have a lot of other commitments. I have work, I've got the amazing stuff that we're doing with Spotlight Indie, I review for Fanfi Addict, I write, I have a just about to turn 4-year-old son, who is 98% puppy, 2% human, and 100% feral. So I have him to look after. And family life, personal life, work life, writing life. It's a lot. But that's my situation, and all of that while at the same time not having the best of health. So just trying to manage all of that as well, because that can very quickly lead to burnout. What about you, PL? What's your work-life balance?
Well, it's better than it has been in the past. So like Holly, I no longer have any young children at home. They're all adults. Some of them have children of their own. None of them live with Deb and I. But however, we are very involved with, our kids, our grandkids to a certain extent. I work full time. I have a very, very busy career. It's not as chaotic as it used to be. I work in law enforcement, and I used to be more frontline, but now I'm not. I'm more in an administrative capacity. And I do have the opportunity to have some work from home days, so that's huge. But beyond that, I'm very busy in general in the community. Not only do I write books, as I mentioned on the previous iterations of your wonderful Spotlight Indie, I do a lot in the blogging world. I'm assistant editor with Forgo Blog. I have a YouTube channel where I do my own interviews and book reviews and things. And I'm also part of Page Chewing under that umbrella with Taylor, doing the Page Chewing YouTube stuff. There's a lot going on. I'm writing a 7-book series where I published a book a year successfully. That in itself, I think, for me personally, is an accomplishment, and that's my goal. So I'm pretty busy. But the thing is that irrespective of your situation, the most important thing is however you do it, whether you're a plotter or a planner in terms of your writing, whether you're a plotter or a planner in terms of your personal life. None of it really matters. It's just do. How you get there is in some ways almost irrelevant. We all have our unique idiosyncrasies and habits. And so the biggest advice I have is like Nike. So then just do it. How you do it, whether you take 5 years to meticulously plot out your world building, or you just write the first thing that comes to mind and you revise a few times and you publish it. It doesn't matter as long as you get the thing out there in terms of your book. Because until you get the book published, to be honest with you, in my mind, that's where everything starts. So irrespective of how long it takes you, what you have to do prior to that, just try and get it done. And don't be too hard on yourself at the same time. Everyone's timetable is very different. Some authors are extremely prolific and they can write, and it may be different time constraints, but they can write. Don't judge your productivity by anyone else's. Some people are very structured. They do writing. They have writing spreadsheets and charts, and they plot out how many words they write per day, etc. That's fantastic. And it works for you, do that. And if it doesn't, don't. As long as you write the book. So I think we have to allow for our all individual situations, as we talked about, our own individual styles, how we approach things, our levels of energy, things going on personally, because all those things are going to affect your writing. So my thing is just write, publish, just get it done. It doesn't really matter how. And give yourself some grace when you don't get that thing you want to do done on time in the time you want to do it, or you feel behind, because as long as you get it done eventually, it's okay.
I mean, I think I 100% agree with all of that. However, for all those people that might hear that or watch this and think, well, that's great, PL, like I'm ready to do it, but how? I want to talk to you a little bit about your situation, because I know that you work with your wife. She helps you with the management side of the book. And I think a really important thing for indie authors is to outsource where they can. So what has that looked like for you? Because I know that that's a very important part of your indie journey and your author life.
Yeah, I'm extremely blessed. My lovely wife, Debbie, who is the secret weapon, the person who without her, nothing happens. She, in innumerable ways, she makes this writing thing tick for me. Whether that's as simple as, we like to share housework, but if there's times when no, she goes, I'm going to take it out, so you need to write. Or, or just the encouragement, the pat on the back, or the kick in the butt to say, you better get on this, because you need to get this book done. To doing a lot of the again, so many things behind the scenes as a business manager, on the financial side and the marketing side, but your partner or your dog or your mother, father, sister, brother, friends, their support levels are going to vary. So some people have partners who, like me, are involved in the business with them, the writing business with them. And it may be just your partner doesn't read fantasy, doesn't like fantasy, but it's just supportive of you in general and allows you the time, the freedom, the energy to pursue your passions, or, walks the dog or changes the diapers so you can, get in a few words, or simply just, when you're down, doesn't do any of that, but when you're down, they're there to, support you. I'm very blessed. I know how blessed I am to have Deb. And the level of involvement she has, but that's not realistic for, you might have a partner that works and travels constantly and isn't able to be physically present and or do those things, right? I'm lucky that Deb said she has a very busy career, and a very busy life herself, but again, we don't have, young kids at home. We're able to, and we're able to do some things, like when she travels in business, I'm able to travel with her a lot of times, so it's my situation is very unique, and I'm very fortunate that way, but it's, if you don't have what I have in terms of that, it doesn't mean that, of course, you don't have a supportive partner or, again, mother, brother, sister, dog, etc. It just means that, you're going to have to get a bit creative, and you may have to potentially look for those support systems and networks, outside of your home, or you're going to have to find a way, a self-motivation or a self-accountability measure that's going to help you, whether that's, again, a writing program, etc., tracking your words per day, or however you do it, right? But yeah, I know that I'm very blessed to have Deb there in my corner to really allow me to be as productive as I am as an author. So thank you, honey. I love you. Thank you for doing what you do. I do appreciate it.
And we thank you as well, Deb, for letting PL do what he does. I want to just I want to just dive in a little bit onto 2 points there. One is that obviously we do understand that not everybody has that person in their life who can be a permanent kind of outsource who can take care of those things. And I'm going to come back to that. But I would also like to say that for a lot of people, I think there is an apprehension to ask for help. So, writing can be a very isolating profession. It can be very lonely. And for me, one of the biggest things that I learned last year from starting Spotlight Indie was the fact that I have somebody in my life, so my husband, who I had never actually thought to say, do you want to get involved in this? Do you have an interest in this? And when I actually did, he was like, yeah, of course I want to get involved. So until you actually ask, you don't always know that person wants to be involved. So I would definitely recommend having those conversations if you do have that person in your life. But if you don't have a person in your life who you can outsource these things to, you can look for that in other ways. So in terms of outsourcing work, I personally have outsourced a lot of things like formatting. I mean, not only do I not have the time, I don't want to do it. It frustrates the hell out of me. So those small jobs, although for someone who knows them well, might only take an hour, they would probably take me like a full day of my life. So it's about knowing those jobs where it's going to take you longer to do it than it is to ask someone else to try and like help you or do it for you, or pay a professional for it. So I want to ask both of you, what are the things that you have found useful to outsource to other people or to ask for that extra help with?
I can totally take this one because I, like you, Holly, have the nemesis of formatting. It does not suit my strengths at all. And with Yes Tomorrow, I was like, it was the first paperback I'd ever tried to format. I was just like, oh man, for like 9 weeks, banging my head against the wall. And one day, my wife came downstairs. I was basically just like crying in a heap, like, I can't do this. She was like, you realize that I like modify books and format them for a living, right? And I was like, oh yeah. So she is now my formatter of my books, which is awesome. She's also my first reader, so she's always honest with her feedback. So for every book that is there, that she's torn it to pieces first. So that's the best. But I feel like with the indie experience, you are a learner. So I haven't just allowed her to format my books. I've sat there as she's formatted, and I've had her talk me through the process, because it's important for me to be able to do these things, and also because her time is precious. So, and I feel like with what we need as indies in order to better manage our time is we need teachers, and to be able to help us to understand how we can maximize our time by making us better at what we do. And if you have access to that type of support, it might not be somebody that can do that for you all the time, but if they can show you how to do it and how to do it well and how to do it quickly, you will benefit from that when it comes to managing your time and how much you've got in the tank. So I will forever be grateful to Ree, not just for the formatting she does for me, but for the patience that she's shown in showing me how to do it too.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. And congratulations to both of you for having that. And we are blessed, right? Again, it's not everyone who has that. And whatever you need to outsource as an indie, whether that's cover design. And again, everybody has different tolerance levels, budget levels to be able to outsource anything at all. Some people are extremely savvy technically, and they decide to eventually design their own covers and do everything in between. But it's all about, I think, your goals. Because for some of us, I think, there's that, I talked about being an entrepreneur. Some of us want to embrace that in every sense of the word, and it's important to be the person that does everything: the cover design, the formatting, the editing, the everything. And some people can do that really successfully. For example, Tim Hardy is brilliant at doing his own copy editing and line editing, and he's very knowledgeable. He's stringent with his budget. He has certain goals. I don't want to give any trade secrets here in terms of profitability, and he meets them but not everyone is Tim Hardy, right? So you also have to be aware of your strengths. I think maybe the first thing is being aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, and what are the goals you want to achieve. Are you looking for profitability immediately, and not to essentially you want to earn out quickly from what you spent on making the book? That may change what you outsource and what you decide to do yourself. Again, it's limitless, this topic almost, but I think for some people, this is where you also have to decide how you want to publish. Because the one thing I will say, and we talked about traditional publishing and self-publishing, not that it's perfect. Again, it's not Nirvana, but if you're traditionally published, if you're Big Five, you don't have to worry about formatting your book. You don't have to worry about pressing the button on Amazon. You don't have to worry about finding a cover artist. You don't have to worry about. So I think, while it can be a long road, there are distinct advantages to traditional publishing, specifically with that if you're thinking, okay, I want to be an indie author, but I don't want to do anything of those things. I don't want to pay for any of those things. Well, maybe you need to look at another avenue of publishing, because, and just be realistic, right? So maybe the first step is write down your goals, your aspirations for what you want to do with publishing your book, how you want to get that done, and what your tolerance levels are, what your budget is, and then that may lead you. I think one of the biggest question is how I'm going to publish, and that may lead you to down a specific path, right? So I think that's important to remember.
You used a term there, and that was tolerance levels. And I want to just jump onto that a little bit, because I think that's a really important part of time management, is to understand your personal energy reserves for different aspects of writing and publishing, because we're all different and we all have different levels of tolerance for different things. So for me, my tolerance for anything to do with computers and IT is incredibly low. I'll get maybe an hour of tolerance, and then the whole thing is going out the window and into the trash fire and never to be seen again. Whereas something like project management, I have a really high tolerance for, so I can sit and do a 12-hour day and not even feel like I've done, you know, a full day's work. So for both of you, how do you find your tolerance levels for the different aspects, and how do you manage that?
I will say first is that, you know, again, I talked about identifying your strengths and your areas for opportunity. So I know that for me, when I work shift work, for example, some days I was so burnt out and so tired and exhausted, even when I was off shift, that my levels of energy, they fluctuate so much that some days I just couldn't write. I could barely get off the couch. I had housework to do, I had this to do, I did those, but I mean, that was it. I had spare energy for only so many things. And I wasn't motivated, I wasn't feeling the muse, so to speak. But there's days when I felt it, irrespective of how tired I was. And I wrote maniacally to make up for the times when I wasn't writing. But all that mattered at the end of the day is that I had a book at the end. And certainly I can't tell you what days if I look back now, I didn't track what days that I didn't write and how many days I didn't write consecutively. And when I wrote consecutively, like a maniac, or it didn't matter. I just wrote when I could. So I knew that my tolerance for keeping track of words, that wasn't there, just by virtue of, like, organically, because of what I was doing, the shift work, I was doing. So yeah, again, at the end of the day, it's all about the end goal, and how you get there, you know, really doesn't matter. It's that at the end of the day, I managed to produce a book every year, despite working shift work. And sometimes I wrote a lot, and sometimes I wrote little. I didn't really track how much I wrote, but that doesn't work for everyone. I'm just saying it worked for me. So my tolerance for any of that stuff and so as time has gone on, I still don't do that. I just write when I can, and when I don't feel like writing, I don't. But at the end of the day, I have this internal self clock, or the discipline level, or of course I have Deb, you know, behind me as a motivator. But the combination of those things, the book gets out every year around the spring, and that's the goal. So how I get there, I tend not to worry about it. But I'm typically pretty organized, and I'm typically pretty self-motivated, so it just gets done. But that's my way. To me, it's the right way. It's just PL's way. So you have to find your way.
I think for me, it is not just a battle against the task, but it's also a battle against procrastinating the task. And I think that the important thing for me is that things get started. So I made the mistake early on when I was writing of being very task oriented in the way that I carried it out. So I would feel like, right, by the end of tonight, I've got to get to this point. And that put too much pressure on me, because there was no room for flexibility. It was basically like, you're not giving yourself any cushion, you're not giving yourself any option of backing out. You are just going to work solid until you accomplish that. That pushes you past your limits, and that's how you reach burnout. So for me, it was a case of, right, okay, I've started what I wanted to set out on. That's okay. That's a win, because that's me defeating procrastination. And then once I've made a start, if I finished that task, great. If I didn't, and I realized that I was actually, now's the time to step away, I gave myself the freedom to do that. And once I started doing that, I made so much better progress with the writing life balance. because I wasn't up until like 3 o'clock in the morning trying to fix a sentence that I could easily have done the next day in 2 minutes. So it just gives you that freedom of find out what your personal battles are, find out ways of making sure that you're overcoming those challenges, but you're not doing it in a way that is detrimental to your overall balance of your life and your mental health. Because I think that's the risk for a lot of new indie writers, that they feel like they have to do this, but all of that pressure is only coming from themselves. And set a deadline if you need it, but if you miss that deadline, it's okay. Like, no one knows, only you know. Don't feel bad about it. That's just life. Life gets in the way of writing sometimes, and that's fine. So that whole approach of just don't get task focused, but just stay focused on what you are doing and what you are accomplishing. That was a real thing that helped me. And if that helps somebody else, then that's awesome.
I do think that one of the things that we probably all struggle with is this concept of always having to be doing. So because we are constantly writing and promoting and engaging and networking, there is almost this sense of if you're not working, you're wasting time. And obviously that can be very detrimental to not only your work, but also your mental health. So I think it's really important to talk about the things that you can do that will make you feel like you are still being productive and still adding value to your author journey and career at those times where you don't have the energy to write. Because there are going to be days where you can't sit and write 500 words, 200 words, even 100 words. So in those times, there are things that you can do. For example, even something as small as if you're just sat there on the sofa eating crisps, as I like to do very often, scrolling through your phone and just looking through authors that you admire and saving posts that they've made that you think that's a really good way to market your book, or book covers that you really like, and just stockpiling those things for a later date, or something like a blog post on how to format your book. Even if you don't have the capacity to sit and read it at that time, when you see it, just save it, and that is still being productive. You are still adding value to your author knowledge and your author toolkit, but without having that pressure of actually having to do and be productive. A lot of what we do is learning and research. Are there any small tasks or things like that that you guys do in that downtime that you find really valuable? PL, what about you?
Reading. Because for me, I'm old school, and the reason why many of us are authors is because of our love of reading and our love of story. And the reason that what motivates so many of us is our influences, the authors who are influences on us, whether authors that we've read in the past or authors that we recently discovered. And you learn so much from the study of the craft, from reading other authors' books. You get ideas. Nothing is derivative. You're not plagiarizing. You're stimulating your brain about, you may resolve a certain plot thread. You think, well, oh, I see how that author did it. Well, that gives me an idea. I might do it this way. So reading is a great, and it's also, generally speaking, not necessarily relaxing typically. And you just, and a bit of escapism, and just maybe, I know for some authors, it's hard to read from just after they become an author, to read from strictly a reader lens. They're reading from an author / editorial lens. Not me. I just read books for the enjoy. I have that ability. I guess I'm just weird that way, but but I still learn. I still am subconsciously picking up pieces of craft and great writing. I may turn to Holly's book, or Tim's book, Tim Hardy's book, or Bjorn Lars's book, or one of my friends, or Janny Wirtz, or Philip Chase, and just wow, I picked up something great from reading that novel, and I may not even be aware of what that is until later on, or it may just motivate me to write. So I think reading is a great way to do that.
I eat ice cream, take a shower, and go to sleep. And if I can do all of those at the same time, it's a win. When it comes to, I think it's a process of renewal. I think that's what we need to find in those moments. And I think that we need to figure out what it is that puts you back into that zone and allow yourself the freedom to explore those things. If it's watching a movie, watch a movie. If it's playing a video game, play a video game. You are still absorbing things that you will use creatively. There's temptation is to be productive, and that's what you want to be. But what you can sometimes find is that if you are productive in another way, so for example, if you go on social media and you replace writing time with being on social media, you are making a rod for your own back, because then when you do have it in the tank to be able to write, you are going to be so committed to what you're doing on social media, you're not going to have the same kind of time. So just whatever it is that you do, just make sure that it's something that you can back off from, that it's not something that is going to swallow up your writing time later on down the line, because that defeats the purpose of it being productive. So if you like what Holly was saying about going through and liking posts and all of that kind of stuff, that's great. But if you're then sort of like thinking, right, okay, I'm going to post this at the same time every day, then that's a commitment that you can't keep to. So just be careful of that, of the snare of productivity, because it may end up being the thing that actually stops you from making progress.
Yeah, absolutely. It is all about being strict with yourself and setting those boundaries, and understanding that when you do sit there and look for cover art that you like, or search for author websites that you think are really good, that is you finding something for later. That is future use work to do, not right now. Right now, all you are doing is you are stockpiling, and it is really important to set that boundary. And that leads me very nicely into my next question, because it is great for us to sit here and give this advice and say this is a good thing to do. I want to talk about some of the bad things to do, and particularly the bad things that we do, because we're all guilty of having kryptonite when it comes to time management, and things that we personally need to work on. And I think it's good to have those conversations. So when it comes to time management, Frasier or PL, whoever wants to go first, where are your pitfalls that you constantly fall down into?
I'll say social media. Scrolling, wasting time scrolling, checking out whatever mindlessly. That's probably the biggest one. You can go down tons of rabbit holes, whether that's YouTube or all the big social media websites, Twitter, X / Instagram. You can really lose yourself for hours if you let yourself watching your favorite YouTube. Like, you can waste a lot of time doing that stuff. No, it's a waste, because you may pick up something just off the cuff that's important. It would be of information, whether that's technical information for writing, or whether that but yeah, you can really get lost on social media. So I think it's one of those things where again, without having a timer, you try and set some boundaries around social media. It's really important. It's really, really important, especially to your career. It's important to make those connections, and important to do all that. Like I wouldn't have met people like Holly Frasier were not for social media. However, it can also be a bit of a trap. So that's probably the number one thing that if you can manage it appropriately and not get lost, and still be productive and do other productive things with your time, I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. I think the worst thing somebody could do is watch the backlog of Spotlight indie videos on YouTube. That'd be a terrible. No, yeah, of course, watching Spotlight indie videos is a perfect thing to do. But no, for me, I think my bad habit is in spending too much time in my headspace trying to figure out things that don't need figuring out. So, I spend a lot of time planning for right, when's the next book release due? When's the next this due? When's that going to be happening? What about this? What if I don't make that deadline? What if I don't do this? What if I don't? And it's all of that rolls around and round and round in your head that you give all of this time to. And then, like PL said, at the end of the day, you write the book and it takes as long as it's going to write, and you don't really have a great deal of control over that. It just takes as long as it takes, and it's allowing myself the ability to be able to step back and go, all of that other stuff doesn't really matter. But my habit is to get so spiraling in that kind of thought pattern, that then it kind of stifles what I want to be doing. So that's my bad habit, is, as well as the social media, which of course is like everybody's bad habit, but it's wasting time that I could be putting to better use by fretting over all of the stuff that I'm not getting done, which I'm not actually helping to get done by wasting time fretting about.
Yeah, very relatable. I think we have all been there. I think with the social media as well, because what we do like to try and do with these conversations is give people advice that is practical and actionable and they can do easily. Is one thing I've discovered is that on my phone there is a setting called device well-being, which means I can set timers on social media. And this is something I've started doing over the last few weeks. So I limit myself to an hour and a half of social media a day, which does sound like a lot, but obviously when you're bouncing between different sites and things, it does kind of rack up quite quickly. But what that means is that once that 1.5 hours has been used, my phone then turns those apps off. And I have to go in and manually turn them back on again if I want more time. And I'm far too lazy to do that. And that has really helped to keep me off social media on my phone, apart from those allotted times that I can use. And also my phone battery is lasting forever now. So double bonus there. In terms of kryptonite, when it comes to time management, mine is certainly, as I mentioned earlier, overloading and not setting healthy boundaries for myself. So I will quite often go for full weeks where I don't have a full day off. And even if I'm just doing an hour or so of work, it will be every day of the week. And that is not a healthy or sustainable way to do things. So I am trying very hard to work on that. And it is a work in progress. But little things like setting those timers on my phone so that I can't go down the rabbit hole of social media. And also saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take half an hour every day to go and take a walk and get outside, and just forcing myself to have those limitations is a lot healthier. So I know that is something that I do need to work on personally. But I am aware, obviously, that we are coming to the end of this segment and all this amazing advice. So I want to just do a little quick roundup of, if you could give any one piece of advice to other authors on time management, what would your number one tip be?
I would say that you need to know that when it comes to time management, there's no one thing that is normally going to help you achieve the mission of getting everything you want to get done as an indie author done, and that you'll be pulled in many, many different conflicting directions. You will feel that, oh, I'm writing so many books, I'm being so prolific, but I'm doing nothing to market them. And because of that, I'm not getting reviews. I spent all this time reaching out to bloggers and getting all these great reviews, and my one book is selling, but now I've only been able to write one book in 5 years because of all the podcasts I'm going on and all this social media I'm doing, everything else, and I really would like to get that sequel done, and I can't find a way to get it done. You're going to find that there are so many things that you could do that could potentially give you, I think, a lot of us are looking for a combination of commercial success and critical success. It's a hard balance to achieve, but I don't think that there's any one thing that you can do as an indie author that's going to give you that, simply because by virtue of being an indie author, we frequently don't know what works. We just don't know. You may have gone on this one podcast and it goes viral, and suddenly you get 100 extra sales, and you don't know if it was that. It could have been that Amazon sale you ran. It could have been, that other review you got. It could have been you went, wide now instead of limited on, and you just don't know. And so much of it is trial and error. And because, unless you have, I guess, a way to track that, if you have, a promotional firm working for you, we just don't know what works, right? We try our hand at this, we try our hand at that. But at the end of the day, I think, again, the best advice is you have to find a happiness and a comfort level of where you are at a specific time in your writing career, so that you can stay sane and not get caught up in, well, I need to be doing this. Like, Holly's doing this, so I should be this, or Frasier's doing this. Well, that might not work for you based on your time, your availability, etc. You're going to have to do a lot of trial and error. You're going to have to come to a feeling of self-satisfaction without getting complacent about where I am in terms of how many books I've written, how many I've sold, how many reviews I'm getting, my general feeling of, how known I am as an author. Like, you're going to have to find a way to be happy and still enjoy the craft, which is at the end of the day, the focal point is still writing those books. It's still the craft. And still be happy doing it, enjoy doing it, feel good about where you are. And that's hard, right? That's all hard, and I think as indies, we spend so much time focusing on what we're not doing well. Oh, I didn't get those tweets out today. I didn't promote myself this way. No one's gonna know about me. Oh, I didn't finish this chapter. Oh, I'm not reaching out to enough bloggers. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Like you're gonna have to realize that even if you do have the support systems in place, you're only one person. You can only do so much, and whatever your yard mark, your stick is for, I don't need to get to this point. I want it, just be patient with yourself, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
My piece of advice is remembering, or trying to remember, if you can, that balance is not a state that you achieve. It is a process that is in constant flux and requires constant readjustment. So do not feel bad when you lose it. Everyone loses it. The important thing is that you keep taking steps forward to try and attain it. Balance is an aspiration that we all are trying to achieve, and no one person has the monopoly on how to get there or how to keep it. So just find your way, keep taking steps, one step at a time, and try not to sweat it if you occasionally lose that balance. And you will eventually reach the end of your journey in one piece.
And very quickly before I hand over to Frasier to wrap us up, my top piece of advice is build yourself a 3-month buffer. So if you know that you're going to finish your book in January, don't set your launch date until March. If you think you're going to get your book to your editor by March, tell them that they're going to have it by July. So always give yourself that 3-month buffer so that if things happen, life happens, things crop up, you're not feeling under pressure to meet a deadline that you've set for yourself that is too close to actually achieve. But that brings us to the end of There's No Such Thing as a Stupid Question. PL, I feel like we have absorbed so much wisdom from you in this session. Thank you so much. Frasier.
And thank you, Holly. Thank you, PL. It's been so nice to have you over the past 3 weeks, all to ourselves, to be able to bask in all of the things that we've been able to learn from you, and we really appreciate it. All of the best with book number 5. All of the best with the anthology that's coming out, Shapers of Worlds. For anybody who's enjoyed our time that we've been able to spend with you, please tell us for the final time where they may be able to find out more.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to be with you, Frasier, and Holly, of course. You're both so wonderful human beings and amazing people and brilliant authors. And Frasier, I need to read your work. I haven't done that yet. It's been on my TBR for a while, so that has to become a priority.
Don't
Holly,
expect much.
Oh, you're too much. Holly, of course, who is one of my favorite authors. That's not going to change. So I can't wait to read what you write next. plstuart.com for the books. Before we go, blog for the blogging stuff in terms of reviews, page chewing, the interview series YouTube with Taylor from Interviews Pages, the awesome Taylor. My YouTube channel for 6 elemental interviews where I focus on mostly indie authors and bloggers. And the John King Saga, 4 books out, 5th one coming out soon, A Pack of Wolves. The short story, The Forest Dark, in the Shapers of World Anthology, Volume 5. Listen, if as great a writer as Holly Tinsley, said she liked it. I can't wait to hear more about what she thought about the book. Then I think my first foray in short stories was a success. So, but check it out, not so much for mine, but for all the brilliant authors that are part of this anthology. There really are some amazing, unique stories in this. And it's coming out March 25th. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much again for having me. It is truly an honor.
Thank you, PL. And Holly, where can everybody find you and where can we find Spotlight Indie?
If you want to find me for further tips on how to set controls and limitations on your phone, you can find me on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also find Spotlight Indie on all of the same socials. You can visit our website to see our latest reviews and videos, which is www.spotlightindie.co.uk. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter as well, which quite often comes with some nice little freebies and short stories and things.
Fantastic. And yeah, as for me, at Frasier Armitage, that's me. It's very simple, very boring. I wish it was different. I wish I had something really cool, like, you know, like at the best writer in the world ever.com, etc. But it's not, it's just at Frasier Armitage or FrasierArmitage.com. Boring, right? Or spotlightindie.co.uk. Woohoo! For everybody else who's watched this, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time on Spotlight Indie.